the other mic? Oh, okay, it's here. Thank you. This panel session wouldn't be too long. It would be for about 15 minutes. And I think I don't want to, bore the audience this afternoon with you all are incredible people. And I met some of you before. Some of you are meeting for the very first time. I think the first time I saw Gemini was in Ibadan. You had worked on a project with Kola Ayo Adams, right? But I was just in the background at the time. And one of the things I heard him say, you were on a podcast, I'm not sure if it was recently, but where you were explaining the orikis somebody calls the love of their life in Yoruba, and it was so beautiful to hear. Now, I want us to really think of the topic that we're going to be looking at, which is how poetry and spoken word carry our scars. We had somebody from Vital Verse talk about how, we sometimes can project. So I'm going to start off with you, Gemini, and I'm going to ask how, I noticed that you're very raw, you're very honest with how you deliver your poetry, and I want to find out from you, how do your personal scars, how do they influence the body of what you do? How does that play a role in your voice? And all of you are going to answer this question on how your personal scars play a role in how you deliver your work and how you interpret your work. And does it in any way influence your perspective to your work? Right.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a privilege to be part of this conversation, and I love to reiterate it every time that an artist is first human, even before we stamp that label. So every of life's vicissitudes, the traumas, the uneven happenings are bound to happen to that artist, because again, an artist is human before we stamp that label. Now, having put that into consideration, I think there is no set template or regulated template for how every artist interacts with their scars. Instead, you have to believe in the story you are telling. It has to be honest to you. You cannot tell a story that you do not believe in. And I always say it every time that people go to art, not necessarily poetry now, but every other forms of art, for different reasons and for varying reasons. For someone like me, when I introspect through my works and I engage my scars or my pains in my work, I'm not necessarily doing it for the capitalist appeal. I am doing it because first, it is an escape for me. First, it is me preserving the memories of some people or certain events dear to me. The extreme by which I chose to go, or how deep I choose to, dig, now depends on my preference. Or like, the lady from Vital Verse said, how much weight you can bear when the storytelling is down. So again, it's more of a personal journey, and our thick skin, our layers to emotional reaction, differs from one person to another. But above all, believe in the story you are telling. Do not talk about pains because it's a worthy story to sell, or it's a story that you feel like people would relate to. If it is not honest, it will shatter you even more.
Thank you. All right, because of how the mic is moving, I'd like to give the mic to Islamia. How do you? I want you to answer that question. But
question, right?
Yes.
I don't know if it's afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Bakari Islamia, popularly known as Kemistree Bakari. All right. First of all, I want us to know what a scar is. If you look at your body or your skin, any part of your body, where you've been wounded before will be different from the way your normal body is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that you know that a scar is memory. And then what does the body do? It is the way of nature protecting itself. Mm. That is why when you are cut, that means you have a wound. It was a wound, right? Then nature wants to protect itself to make sure that that wound does not occur in that particular place anymore. Then it will bring more tissues that will be thicker than the first skin.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, so the scar was gotten from a wound. and a wound with nature's attempt to protect itself. That's what it is. Okay, so coming for me personally, I would say my own scar is the father wound. Okay, it's the father wound. That's how I got my own scar. Right from childhood, I've always known that I am born to speak. You know, from primary school, every school competition, they will take you everywhere. It has always been like that. Then my father feels like you are a girl, so it is not the place of a girl to speak. So that was where my wound came from. So now, relating it back to poetry. So my wound was gotten from the father's womb. One, he was not available. Another thing is that every contact I get with him is trying to let me know that you are a female. It is not in your place to speak. So that's where the journey started. So my first ever poem started from being bullied, then relating it back to my wound, which is the father's wound.
Yeah.
So I related it back to it that, okay, by fire, by force, you just want your voice to the earth because you believe that this is what you are meant to be. So it became a rebellion. So my wound is that father does not want me to speak, and then I feel like the way to protect myself is to protect myself double, just like the scar, double layer of what the skin will provide in the first instance. So that's how we started.
I want to pause you there and chip in a question before you pass the mic. How do you balance telling uncomfortable truths while also owning, protecting your own emotions? How do you balance it? Because it feels like it's a thin line between wanting to share and also protecting. Because by the time you share, you have given access to people to also make comments. So how do you balance that?
Okay, how you balance it, myself and everyone in general, is that you seek knowledge. Okay, you seek knowledge, you understand that, okay, why do I feel this way? It is not for you to deny that fact that this wound does not exist. It is for you to absorb it. Yes, I feel it. This is how it made me feel. Okay, the next thing is, if I am now trying to fight my father, okay, by saying he's a bad person, I have become like my father. So I have the responsibility of learning, okay, why did he act this way? There were a lot of things involved that gave him that frame of thought that a female should be this way. So it is my own duty, okay, to have proper knowledge on how to balance it. One of the things I can use, I go from the place of psychology. Okay, they said yes, I agree with you. You go from the place of psychology. Okay, why is he acting the way he's acting? And why am I reacting the way that I'm reacting? So, having said that, it means that it is the knowledge that I got that will set me free. It is the knowledge that I got that will set me free. Because I know, as a child, when a child is in the formative stage, everything they've ever learned, they've ever seen, will not leave their head. It will be stored. And I think it's in hippocampus. That's where it will be stored, that piece of memory. Everything that you ever saw or heard will be there. That is why you say, that the child will not forget. Because that's where they are. But as you learn to grow, you grow to the point, maybe when you clock 25, then your frontal cortex will be activated. Then you'll be able to differentiate. That means you organize what you know. My memory is that I have stored a lot of negative bias that someone did this thing to me. Now I have grown to the level that a part of my brain is activated. Now I can organize my life. Now I can say that, okay, this is bad, this is wrong. How can I make it better as a poet or as a writer or as a human being? How can I make this thing better? It is by finding the balance. The balance is that I cannot become I cannot become what I detest. So what you detest, you cannot become that and you still be right.
Thank you very much. Let's keep the mic moving. We spoke this morning, and I think I maybe know how we know each other. I don't know. I'm thinking of someone that might be the reason why I think I've seen you before. When we're trying to figure out that not the best thing. I'm going to come back to that. But I want you to also answer the same question on how your scars influence your work. But how then do you decide this is the one I'm going to write about, this is the one I'm going to speak about?
Alright. Okay, so up until about 5 years ago, my biggest dream was being small. I wanted to be seen so bad. And I like to talk about how I have ulcer and all that, but I got it from thinking that my size was linked to how I eat and what I eat. turns out it's just genetic and there's nothing I can do about it. But I remember very clearly, my earliest memory of being bullied is a boy following me to the back of our primary school toilet to throw my recorder down the school latrine. I have a piece about it, by the way. And he only detested me because I was fat. And newsflash, was also fat, bigger than me actually. So my first poem that I ever wrote was in 2014, September, October. I was in SS3 then. And I remember writing about the fact that I was angry about a lot of things. And then realizing that if I decided to read that poem in school, nobody was going to make me feel bad about it. It was up to me to decide what I wanted to do. And, because of the inferiority related to my size, I was a very shy person growing up. I'm not shy now, I'm pretty much dancing. So it meant that I was scared of talking. I had questions at events I could not talk. I wanted to be told how to do every single thing. And then realizing that, if I write this poem and if I come on this stage, it becomes my thing, and you can't take that away from me. It really meant a whole lot. And so what did I do? I started tapping into trauma. And as God would have it, in the years that I've passed, especially past 2 years, say 4 or 5, I've had a whole lot of trauma to tap into. So I got into write a whole lot. Some of my folks in Ibadan always make a joke about how Igmat's best misses are when she's heartbroken, whether it's sadness, heartbreak, from love or grief. They say I write best poems then. And I just find it funny. I think I'm just expressing myself, and I'm being thankful for that. So now how do I differentiate between what I write and what I talk about?
Yes, how do you decide this is what I want to write about, this is what I want to talk about?
Alright, okay, so I write about everything. Like literally, if I feel like writing about something, I write. And that's always make me joke about how I don't think I'll ever have a writer's block. It might not flow the way I want it to flow, but I will write. It might not now be stage worthy. I can then decide, okay, I want to shelf this, I want to come on stage and present this. Sometimes, some of my best pieces have come from 2 poems that I wrote way back and then lumped together, and then a few lines and then boom, a masterpiece. So it really just depends on the kind of stage. Are these my kind of people? Do I want to be vulnerable here today, or am I feeling like crying on stage? So it really just depends on how I feel and the kind of stage I have to be on. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Abiodun. You are a scholar. And I want you to also answer the question on how your personal scars influence your work. But I also want you to answer the question around why poetry is regarded, quote unquote, a safe space to express pain.
Thank you very much, the moderator. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here this afternoon. First of all, I'm more of a critic than a writer. I know what a critic does. They try to pinpoint a certain weakness or the weaknesses that are caused in a particular creative work. That's what we do in academics. At the same time, I'm also a writer. I write with cognizance of most of these things that we call weaknesses, because we look at those things very well when it comes to academics. So anytime I'm writing, most of the things I've gone through in life surface in the work I write. And at the same time, I make sure I infuse a little bit of reality, in the sense that there's a difference between what I've gone through. If you actually want to make a wave, you want to be a productive, creative writer, you have to balance the two. Your scars must be expressed in your work. At the same time, you must be able to tell the story of others. There are 3 things that influence your work. It might be your own personal experience. It might be the experience of others, or you want to show that what people are actually going through in the world. For example, the first performer today, I like the way he was able to create his work. He was able to tell us that this is what is happening in the country, this is what we are going through in the country, and he mentioned the way forward as well. So that's the way of expressing scars. Scars is only for being a creative writer or being a poet. You can't just rely on what you went through before, what you have gone through before in life. You have to balance it up with other things. That's what we call arojile. We have arogo, we have arojile, we have arobanjo. All these ones are what they are the creative processes that you have to go through. Thank you very much.
Let's get the mic to Igman. Now, we, as big people who write poems, have you been at any point where you had written a piece, published, and you were scared that maybe the audience or the reader or the listener might not be able to handle so much honesty?
So many times.
So many. Okay, give us context.
Okay, alright, so I like to say most of the times when I introduce myself, I don't call myself a poet. I just say that I'm a writer. Because for the longest time, I wrote prosaic poetry and I used enjambment and whole lot. So people used to say that I wrote like I was writing prose. But I also write prose like this. So I was just like, but I'm writing something and I'm passing a message. So how is that not, you know? And I remember 2016, July 1, I lost, it was the first time I was having to lose somebody, you know, that I thought we were going to speak around for a very long time. But, you know, I just finished my secondary school a year ago. He was sick and everyone said he was dead. I was like, wow. You know, it's different when older people die. You kind of feel like, oh, like, okay, you know, like, we're all getting there eventually,
Yes.
but not right now. So I wrote an 11-page poetry.
11 pages.
About how I felt. And I cried a whole lot. I've always been a very sensitive and emotional person. And I've been trying to learn how to not share too much. So, you know, I wanted an honest opinion from my friend, whose opinion I really rated a whole lot. And I remember he said to me that this is not poetry, not. You just put together a bunch of lines and you're calling it poetry. It broke me. And for a long time, I never asked him for a review again. I think I would have probably stopped writing for a while, but it was the only way I knew how to express myself. Because my daddy already said that. Oh my God, he studied music. So, you know, I remember thinking that, oh my God, how am I ever going to be able to share another piece of my work now that this has happened? And so for a long time, I would write stuff I would not share. And then I stopped going to the Association of Nigerian Authors that my best friend and I belonged in school because I did not have anything to share, supposedly. Until, you know, I can't even remember exactly how happened, but that day I went back to the meeting, and usually before we publish our piece, everybody wants to know if we've written anything new recently. And then I read something that I also wrote about how sad I felt. And then somebody said to me, wow, how come you've not pasted this on the board? And I said, I feel like it's a little too vulnerable. And I don't want people to judge me. And then he asked me if I knew how many people were going to be passing in front of that board that way. And I said no. And he said that, do their opinions really matter? And I said, no, really. Will you be happy if we post it? I said, yes. He said, so go and do it. Stop stressing. So every time I try to remind myself about that when I'm scared about, you know, performing something or submitting for a contest. By rule of thumb, though, I no longer submit to poetry contest. I think that a very, very, very unfair way of evaluating your creativity as a creative. I think it's unfair. And I think if you are somebody who is already not so confident in your abilities as a creative, it will ruin your self-esteem and you really think that you have nothing to offer. So what I just do now is I bring my food to the stage and hope that somebody likes it. And if nobody does, the kind of eye I get from that stage, I think it probably rivals that of somebody who is a drug addict. So I think I'm pretty good for now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Deborah, what's the difference between performing a poem and confessing a truth?
Okay, so again, I'll start this by saying that on my right hand, I hold my sanity there. On my left hand, my heart is there. Now, my sanity is done with the wings, which tells you that the only thing keeping me sane realistically is my heart. And when I lose it, I might as well be dead. So for me, every time I come on a stage to perform, I see it as a conversion. And it does not apply necessarily to every creatives. Why? Because again, we are driven by different reasons. People venture into the arts for different reasons. There are people who are guided by the capitalist drive, the metrics, which is absolutely okay by them. And then there are people like me who speaks not because, oh, the world wants to hear me, or the world is asking me, oh, when are you putting out your next work? I speak because I need to. I do not speak necessarily for this generation of people, because left to me, I feel like most of the things I confess and then people tag as poetry, people tag as prose or plays, are not necessarily there for artistic pleasure. They are my stories. They are people realities. They are the unconventional truth that on a standard basis people would judge. Now I feel like humans are naturally performers. When you leave your house in the morning, you dress up, you kill some part of you in your house simply because you don't want a total stranger coming next to you and telling you, why are you dressed like this? Why are you speaking this way? So there are probably some things you can do at your home that you would rather not do here. But I don't know how to lead a performative life as a human. Talk more of me being an artist. But again, it's absolutely fine for artists who chose to perform as humans and they still choose to perform as creatives. Choices exist.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, this will be the last question for you, and there's one question all of you would answer. Now, my question for you is, does your scar, based on what you have said, and the question popped in my head, does your scar actually guide your art, or does your art guide your healing? Should I say the question again?
Both.
Both?
Yeah, work both ways.
Oh.
For the scar guiding my art, it boils down to, let me say, I am now forced to take the responsibility of helping those who don't have a voice just like me. So I have that responsibility as an artist or a writer to take on the voice of the voiceless. That is how. Then when you now say, when we speak about the art guiding my
healing,
that is very, very important. You cannot write from a place of providing solution to the society when you are writing from the place of the wound. Okay, so if your wound is the major drive, then you will not heal the society. So what happened to you? You are unconsciously passing it to the next person, to the next generation. So
thank you. Before you pass the mic, the last question all of you would answer is, if your life had a poetic title at this moment, what will it be?
The prophetic poet.
The prophetic poet. I like. Okay. Same question.
To be very honest, they wouldn't have a title.
Okay. If that be the title, it wouldn't have a title. Okay.
I really don't know about the title, but I'm quite certain that for every episode, we will start with, I'm just desperately trying not to die today. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Actually, I want to suggest a title. It depends on the happening. But for me, I would say two sides to a coin.
Two sides to a coin. Thank you very much. There's a round of applause for this wonderful panel. And also, maybe while we post on Instagram today, when you are talking about the Ogun Poetry Festival, you can also answer that question. If your life, let me read the question out the way it is here. If your life had a poetic title at this moment, what will it be? My own is God out there. Thank you very much. So round of applause for this wonderful panel. I have to go back to this. What an amazing session. I feel like we should sit down with them for another 20, 30 minutes. But time is not our friend as much as we think. All right, let's keep things moving. All right, DJ.